Hi friends, host Eric here, host of Talking with Famous People, and I'm here with famous person John Sullivan. We're talking shootings. I suggested maybe we frame, he suggested the topic, I suggested maybe we frame it through this multiple choice question I wrote on Facebook, which got a fair amount of responses, I suppose. Not maybe as many as I would have expected, but some people responded to it. Which is most to blame for the shooting? You can only choose one. A. Insufficient legislation preventing gun ownership. B. Insufficient frequency of citizens carrying weapons. C. Islamic ideology. D. Moral absolutism in general. E. Moral relativism in general. F. Loose immigration laws that permit too many in. G. Disenfranchisement of oppressed groups that causes them to lash out in unacceptable but understandable violence. F. The corporate greed underlying the gun industry. G. A fundamental failure of the family to inculcate our children with robust and grounded values. H. The failure of communities to take mental health seriously. I. Omar Mir Sadiq Mateen, a 29-year-old male. What's interesting is when I wrote this question, I actually intended it to be one of those questions that it's like, oh, you got me with that last question. I realize how foolish I've been now, thinking it could possibly be anything other than the individual doing it. However, nobody interpreted it like that. Everybody interpreted it as a set of equal options, that the individual human being who committed the act is of equal possible validity as, say, Islam. And after I thought about it a little while, I kind of concluded they were right, which is to say, one of those abstract things can be kind of responsible for it too, I guess. What do you think about this question in general?
Well, yeah, there is a lot more variables than just one that goes into the creation of the situation. Uh, if if I were to pick one, and I'm just gonna have to pick two. I can't just pick one. I'd put Islamic ideology at the top, and I would have failure to take mental health seriously at the bottom, because those are the two most highest contributing factors to this event happening.
So, are you saying that Islamic militancy is a mental disease?
Not that it's a mental disease, but it's the ideology that finds its way into mental disease or mentally impaired individuals that will cause this
So,
violence.
so you mean mentally diseased people utilize Islam as the way into in the way into like are you saying that they utilize Islam as an expression of their mental illness?
Uh, I guess you could say that. It's more there's good evidence to show that this individual that performed the shooting was gay himself, and that this was sort of this was a means to atone for those sins. At least, if you go by word of the Quran, gays being a sin, that kind of a thing. Also, the cleric recently, I believe it might have been some of his family actually that spoke in a mosque in Sanborn or some part of Florida. He said that it'd be merciful to kill the gays. That'd be an act of mercy to kill them.
Which cleric said that?
Let's see. I, I just keep seeing this article pop up, but
So, I mean, it opens up a lot of interesting policy questions, then, right? Like, should we restrict that kind of speech?
yeah, yeah, it must be killed out of compassion. Let's see. Federal authorities. Yeah, sorry. What was the question? Here, I'll send this over.
Um, I was just reflecting on how much this event suggests to a lot of people that certain liberties ought to be restricted. I mean, I don't. I don't really know how many people are advocating this, but it seemed logical in the aftermath of
It's
something like this would be attempted restrictions on hate speech.
I wouldn't say that because there are there are groups that perpetuate, you know, hateful speech in this country already. You know, like we've had the KKK for years now. You know, they're still around. They still hate black people, but they don't say and they don't execute any plans to kill black people anymore. They just don't like them, and they express that pretty vocally. But they don't express it in terms of violence. They just say we don't want to be around you, and you know, we'd rather have like a separate state or something. But the difference here is that there is actual violence being advocated for.
Is there a difference between that white kid who shot up that black church and this gay guy who shot up the gay club? This gay Islamic guy?
I'd say it's fairly similar. You know that it was inspired by misplaced hate, misplaced ideology. You know that you know this kid up that church hated black people. This guy who shot up a gay club was in a way self-loathing, and you know it implies that he hates gay people, including himself. So, but
What?
it's just that in this specific case, you know, you had it justified by this ideology that exists today. So maybe if his family were more accepting of gays, if his religion didn't bash gays, maybe this would have turned out differently. You know, if he had a support system to fall back on, but he didn't. So this
Well,
kind of thing happens.
do you think that this indicates a need for policy changes?
Uh, no, I don't believe in any, well, at least not domestic policy changes. There's some argument to defend our borders, to defend our values, you know, just as America, a country, that we have to make sure that there people coming in here are at least like-minded in the sense that they agree with our policy and our freedom, you know,
Right,
and Islam in general tends to disagree with that, at least
right.
from the actions displayed by these people coming into the country, coming to Europe, coming into Germany, that they do not agree with our freedom.
Yeah, they sure don't. They don't respect they don't respect divergence of perspective. And as a general
Yeah,
rule,
and
I mean, it's hard to say for every single one of them. For me, this is a difficult situation because, on the one hand, I deeply oppose reducing individuals to members of groups. On the other hand,
yeah,
when it comes to Islam, I'm much more willing to do that. And I think it's because Islam's uniquely bad. There's a little bit of contradiction there to be reconciled, maybe, but I think if I can make the uniquely bad argument, then there's not really a contradiction to be reconciled. I don't think
yeah,
that
yeah. I
Islam's
mean,
a viable group in the same way that any other group name is reductive. I think that Islam is a chosen self identification that is actively virulent in almost all manifestations.
yeah. And it's not to say that there doesn't exist, you know, the proverbial moderate Muslims. You know, they do exist. They live in our country, and you know the whole rhetoric to you know just deport them, you know, say like they can't come here anymore, whatever else. It's sort of like saying that you know we should get rid of the KKK. We should send them somewhere else, you know, because they have values that disagree with our own, but at the same time they don't act upon them. Whereas there's a lot of cases where people of the Islamic religion do act upon it. So I wouldn't care if this kind of thing didn't happen, that it wasn't motivated by their religion. But the fact that it does is a problem.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? We lost in semifinals to an Islamophobia case. It's solved for Islamophobia, supposedly. It was very sad to lose to such a case. but that's fine. I mean, I'm glad we lost to them and not to the round before to my former employer. Regardless of that, that's neither here nor there. It's a little bit on my mind still because it's just finished. But you know, I don't know quite what to think of it in general. I feel as though my first instinct is to want to reduce it to simply there's only one party, one of those answers that can have moral culpability. You know, and that's the last one, I, which I'm glad is letter I. Because I am the only one who can have moral culpability ultimately. There's no such thing as we, really. And there's no such thing as an ideology having moral culpability. It's got to be the individuals. We might hold them morally culpable for having a reprehensible ideology, but it can't be the ideology itself. As far as the gun ownership thing, go ahead.
Yeah, and you can, again, yeah, it has to be the individuals. You can't really boil it down to just the holy text because pretty much all the Abrahamic religions share mostly the same holy text. You know, the Quran might be more direct, hard in its rhetoric, in its teachings, but they're more or less the same to a lot of Abrahamic religions. And Christianity, Judaism, they had their own renaissances, and they're not, for the most part, they're not bashing gays. There is like the occasional thing that happens with like pride parades and Jerusalem. I'm sure you heard of the stabbing from last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's some hate instances with fundamentalist Christian groups as well. I think that they're much less representative of the population as a whole than are the Islamist extremists representative of their population as a whole.
Yeah, and they're not having a holy war as of 2016, as of 2000, as of 1930s. They've been pretty quiet for the most part. They may have their own institutional problems, but it's nothing that's a direct problem of conflict.
Okay, so what do you think about the insufficient legislation preventing gun ownership? Do you think that's a problem, that they have made guns harder to get, this wouldn't have happened? Are you thinking? John, can you hear me? Oh, you're frozen. Well, John will hopefully be back with us in a minute. I don't know if that's me or him. Hey, stop! Well, friends, that ends this video. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People.